So today I wanted to do a bit of a personal little passion video. I like occasionally just watching the 2020 Game Awards Mass Effect Next trailer, where they confirmed the next game was coming. It was in development, and it's still picked apart to this day by people like myself and other fans who are excited about the upcoming game, even if it's probably a few years away. So this is my 2023 edition of this. Obviously, I'll mostly try to talk about things that we've learned or speculated or that have been rumored in the last year or so. This is obviously leading up to November 7th, when we have N7 Day this year, and we may get some more info. I will almost certainly do some type of what we know so far video, including this footage after that. But let's jump into that trailer, and I'll stop it periodically to point out things and to talk about things that I think are interesting or that are possible for the next Mass Effect game. Right off the bat, this has been, I don't want to say it's controversial, but one of the most talked about things right here. We have the Andromeda and the Milky Way galaxies. It's really interesting, and it accounts for all of these things, and how basically whatever you personally want is what you see from this trailer and from all of the teaser stuff they've shown us so far. So if you want this game to take place in a future where Andromeda and the Milky Way are connected somehow, or in a game that takes place in Andromeda or is like an Andromeda sequel, you see this as, hey, look, they're showing Andromeda. That means it's in the next game for sure. If you're someone like me who actually wants this to be a very Milky Way focused story, preferably right after the Reaper War, I would say, wow, look at how the Milky Way is taking up 2/3 of this screen, and watch as the camera literally dives into the Milky Way. And then how everything we've seen since this in 2020, all the N7 days and all the teasers, seem to be indicating Milky Way. But that just depends on your personal bias. So I found that to be a very interesting, if not at times frustrating, part of this conversation. So as we've seen, I'm sure many of you have watched this as many times as I. These this part isn't super crazy. It's more going through the history of spaceflight for humans, and now in this part, it's kind of talking about the first interaction with the Turians and the first contact war, or for them, it was like Situation 73 or something. It was like not really that big of a deal to the Turians, but to us, it was our first contact with extraterrestrials, and yeah. So this is probably the most interesting part of this whole trailer, kind of depending on who you are. The idea of Arc 6. In the Andromeda game, we are only aware of 5 arcs. There's there's been so much speculation about this. What is Arc 6? This is, it's being mentioned in this. It's highlighted pretty clearly. Was this Arc 6 intended for Andromeda, or did it have another mission? I've speculated that they could have had an Arc 6 that was literally just supposed to wait in deep space as long as it could, and then come back to the Milky Way, hoping that by then the Reaper threat had passed, and the species and whoever is on that arc could try to repopulate the Milky Way in some capacity. We don't know. It's all speculation at this point, but it's as old as this trailer is, I still believe pretty heavily that when Casey Hudson returned to BioWare for a couple years, I still to this day think that he came back knowing he was going to start humanoid, but probably maybe kind of almost a favor or a protection of his legacy to a point. And he probably came back to just help them set the future of Mass Effect up. And so, with some games, a trailer that is, 3 years old and maybe for a game that doesn't come out for many years after that trailer, you may be concerned that maybe that trailer won't be very representative of the game that's coming. I'm actually mostly just off of a gut feeling, so don't take too much from it. I'm still fairly positive that the things they showed us in this trailer were probably some pretty high level, things that they have been planning out for a long time, maybe since Mass Effect 3 even ended. And, this is all kind of coming to fruition now. And that this, it's so ingrained that the chances of an Arc 6 and some of these other things not being part of the next game are pretty unlikely. So here's a couple things that are interesting. You have all this debris. I assume this is supposed to be kind of talking about or demonstrating visually, along with the audio, the Reaper War, the Mass Effect 3 conflict between all of the species of the Milky Way against the Reapers and all of their associated individuals, and it culminates with this image of a Mass Effect relay. And what's interesting about this relay to me is that it's intact. And the ending scenes of most of the extended cut, especially, but in the Legendary Edition, especially Destroy, you see these rings that the Master Relays don't explode the way the one does in the Arrival DLC in Mass Effect 2. These ones, they just kind of get overloaded, the rings break apart, and there's obviously some explosions and damage, but they aren't completely decimated, the relays. And so I think it's interesting that they chose the imagery here to be a relay that appears to be intact but not powered on. I've had some theories that I think the next game could definitely have the Milky Way species opening up new relays and exploring new parts of the universe. There's a codex entry that implies that only 0.4% of the Milky Way has been explored by the Council species, and as part of the known Milky Way, there's a nearly infinite number of systems that have not been explored, that many of them likely have relays in them. They've just never been activated. And so this may be all a reference to that, or maybe it's just showing us a thing that we all remember and that is very iconic to Mass Effect.
Is anyone receiving this? We've lost contact. Do not be reading all across space.
So here we have the the beginning of the end of this trailer. We have a ship going by that, from some concept art, some people have dubbed the Mud Skipper. There's some really old concept art that actually has an Angaran in the concept art that may have been Andromeda, or maybe it was just at the time that's what was on the mind, that's why they were there, or maybe somehow the Angarans found their way to the Milky Way, or maybe that concept art took place in the Andromeda. Who knows? Anyways, we've seen something along the lines of that ship before in concept art. Here we have a planet that has at least 3 moons. People have dug in and tried to find out if this is a known planet, and in the lore. And as far as I can tell, no one has found anything that really implies that this is a place that we should be aware of. It's very well likely just made up for this trailer, but maybe we'll find out one day. This is some really striking imagery, in my opinion, whether you agree or not. And it's where I think they start messaging some things that may be set as canon. I will hide myself quickly. What's notable here are three things. The main thing is the figure in the middle walking up this what seems to be a hill. It's trying to show the scale of the things around them, especially the two other things. One, if you look in the bottom right of the screen, these pipes and tubes and stuff, and the general shape of this object that this individual is walking on indicates this is almost certainly a Reaper, a presumably dead Reaper on this planet they've landed on. The third thing is something I don't think a lot of people always recognize is the background here and this presumably another dead Reaper. You see the sun in the background or the star, but then you see all these bits and lines and stuff hanging off of this Reaper in the background, and implying to me and almost assuring it's dead or damaged and destroyed. I think this is one of the early messaging things they've done to say that it's, I believe it's unrealistic to make a game set after Mass Effect 3 in the Milky Way that doesn't pick a canon ending. I think the three endings are so different that trying to make one game that encompasses all of them is just basically impossible. And I think this is them doing some early messaging there. So another one of the really controversial and kind of conversation starting things about this trailer is you have this figure who, spoilers, will be revealed to be Liara from the original trilogy, picking up this piece of N7 armor. The conversation around this is so fascinating to me, because the conversation around this is really fascinating to me. I think it's, again, it goes back to that whole thing of people are going to see what they want, right? And so someone like me sees this and they see Liara picking up a piece of N7 armor. This is clearly the same style of armor. It's the part of the helmet, like around the ear, and I believe near the, like across the chin or in the back of the head. This is Shepard's armor. Like to me, someone who would love to have Shepard again in the next game, who would love to continue that story shortly after Mass Effect 3. That's what I see. You'll see pushback on that. You'll say, oh, well, there were lots of N7s. This could be any N7. Maybe it's James. Maybe James is in the next game. Like, come on, give me a break. But I get it, because not everyone wants Shepard back. Some people want this game to take place in a much different time and things like that. And that's fine. My thing, though, is that you don't do this. You don't have Liara, one of the main characters of the original trilogy, picking up a piece of extremely iconic armor if you aren't messaging Shepard. I just think that would be insane. And they did a little bit of this weird stuff with Andromeda, where some of the marketing kind of didn't imply, but just kind of evoked the thought of N7 and Shepard and things like that, and then it ended up not having anything to do with them. I don't think they would make that mistake again. I think you do this. This is a reference to Shepard. Maybe it's just oh yeah, we did all love Shepard. Here's a nod to them. One of the main things I've seen people push back on this is that this planet clearly isn't Earth, and this shard of helmet is weird. Why would there be a shard of Shepard's armor on this random planet? This probably isn't the planet that their remains landed on after the events of the beginning of Mass Effect 2, because that helmet was recovered. You can have it in your cabin. Maybe this is part of the next story. Maybe Liara is searching for Shepard and she thinks that he was, or she was here, and she finds, this is part of tracking them down. I don't know. Or maybe it's just a message or a symbol, or maybe it was just part of a cool trailer. We will have to wait and see. And here I do want to show quickly. So we have the ship back here that looks kind of like the old Mud Skipper concept art. We have what's clearly a Krogan, what's clearly a Solarian, and then third, what's probably a human. One of the main things people point out about this is that the armor they're wearing, if you zoom in, does look vaguely like initiative armor, or armor that you see some of the humans wearing in Mass Effect Andromeda. Some people have had this make them believe that this game is going to take place in a timeline where Andromeda and the Milky Way are connected, or that they found a way to come back from Andromeda to the Milky Way, that this game is being implied to take place hundreds of years after Mass Effect 3. Definitely possible. That's kind of hard to dispute to a point. My take on it is that I was always under the impression, or always had the headcanon, that the Initiative had this Andromeda mission, and they built the Nexus and all of the arcs, including an Arc 6, which we don't know anything about yet. But that the Initiative, it's not like they packed up everything and went with the mission. The Initiative would have still existed in the Milky Way even after those missions launched. And my headcanon is that the mysterious benefactor would have stayed behind and basically turtled up and to ride out the Reaper War and see what would happen. In a subsequent victory against the Reapers, the Initiative would very likely try to be an influence in the Milky Way. If their whole idea was preservation of all of the species of the Milky Way by doing the Andromeda mission, we still don't know who the mysterious benefactor is, or what their true intents were. But in theory, if they were still capable of helping or rebuilding or taking power after the defeat of the Reapers, we would likely see their influence in the Milky Way, including their armor, their ships, their technology, because we also saw it in the 2022 and 7-day little video poster thing, that there's ships that look like really, really small versions of the arcs. So who knows? We'll have to wait and see. And there she is. So there we have Liara. What's so funny is I saw this trailer before I played Mass Effect. So this trailer came out in late 2020, in December. They had already announced during N7 Day the Legendary Edition of Mass Effect. I had finally been convinced by a coworker to finally play it. I've since played it, I think, around 20 times, not including Andromeda. But I didn't understand what this was, but I remember this trailer still giving me goosebumps, and now it gives me super goosebumps as someone who's really into the game and really into the lore in the world and is really excited about this next game. The notable thing here is that this is one of the main pieces of evidence by the people who think this game takes place many, many years after Mass Effect 3. They believe that Liara has gone to her matriarch stage of life, potentially 600, 700, 800, maybe even 900 or 1,000 years old. And they mostly base it off of, I've seen people say that her outfit looks like a matriarch outfit. I don't think that's true. It's just looks like she has like a cold weather suit on because they're in this hostile planet. And then it's the wrinkles, it's the lines by her mouth, it's the lines by her eyes. You see a lot of people saying that they think, I just don't think so. I don't think anything we've seen since this trailer has really supported the whole idea of this is taking place way in the future. Even that ship, but especially some of the more recent concept art that we've seen from 2022 and even the 2021 poster that we saw, none of the technology, nothing that we've seen implies that this is a galaxy that's hundreds of years in the future, that has advanced hundreds of years with their technology and stuff. Notably, in some of the posters and some of the concept art from 2022, we see sky cars and shuttles that are the exact same design as the trilogy. You would assume that even in concept art, they would be trying to show some experimentation or advancement in the ships and buildings and things like that. And I don't think we see that. So I suspect we're just seeing a high fidelity image of Liara from 2020. That's the first time we've seen her since 2012, 2013. And I'm just not sold on this, meaning that she's way older. But again, we'll have to wait and see. And then we have the best part of the trailer here. and that's how it wrapped up. So that, I love that music. I love putting that little bit of music at the end of my videos, and about Mass Effect, and just that musical score. It's so Mass Effect. It's so good. I'm sure it was a one-off just done for that trailer, but I very much hope we hear that again. So obviously we have N7 Day coming up here in a few weeks. I am really excited to see what they show us. Since Dragon Age Dreadwolf still isn't out, I'm just not anticipating seeing a bunch about Mass Effect yet. We know they're still in pre-production. That doesn't mean there's nothing for them to show. They would definitely be working on vertical slices and having, I assume, the majority of the story figured out, and even, you know, doing script work and things like that. And they're probably making missions and building out worlds and characters and doing all the things they need to do so that when they go into full production, they can go into it all the way, very likely after Dreadwolf comes out. So I think they could have stuff to show us. It could be a big N7 Day and we get a bunch of really cool information. My guess is that 2024 is way more likely to be the big blow up, though, presumably after Dreadwolf has released. So I don't know. If you care, if you want to know more, if you want to get all of the updates, any of the information I can scrounge up about the next Mass Effect, please subscribe to this channel. If you like this video, please hit the like button. And if you have your own thoughts, questions, or you just want to say hi, comment down below. You can find me as Bond Diesel all over the place on all social media. And you can also find me over on Twitch as Bond Diesel, where I try to stream at least a couple times a week, and we can talk about all of this stuff live. The last thing, I have a weekly video game news podcast called The Bonfire. It's on all podcast platforms and right here on this YouTube, so please check it out. That's all I have for this one, so until next time.